Hey everybody, in today's case we are going over the court and child abuse. It's case number 2 in the corrections book. So in this case we are to envision ourselves as a prosecutor turned family court judge. After our beginnings as a private sector defense lawyer for over 10 years, we decide to move into public service and politics. In our first bid at public office, we are named the county prosecutor and begin our work. As we continue to climb the ranks, we eventually find ourselves a family court judge. During our time practicing law, we always made certain that those who abuse children are punished to the fullest extent of the law. Our first case as a judge is as follows. The facts of the case are that a young boy was found to have been abused by both of his parents. They are a very prominent family in the community, with both parents being distinguished professionals and held in high regard by both their employers and the community at large. The abuse is the result of marital strain between the couple, which led to alcohol abuse by both parents. When the boy, who was 7 years old, interrupted one of their disputes, they turned on him. And the extent of the physical abuse was the use of a belt strap on the back of the child. It is also noted that the boy spends most of his time out of school with babysitters, and most weekends that he's free, he spends with his grandparents. It is also noted that the abuse has not been happening for very long. The question for the class, or rather this case, is should we remove the child from the custody of the parents or leave him there and find alternatives to rehabilitate the parents? So, if it were me, I would be inclined to leave the child with the parents under special supervision. I would have the parents required to attend counseling and therapy to address both the projection of their frustrations on their child as well as their alcoholism. I would also mandate weekly welfare checks on the boy at random times during the week just to make sure that he's not being abused any further. So these random checks can come in on Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday. It doesn't really matter. As long as the child is home and not at school, we'll send an officer out there to make sure that he's safe and he's not being abused. If more abuse is discovered, the child will then be removed from the custody of his parents and placed in the care of his grandparents, with whom he already spends a great deal of time with. As for the parents, they would be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, since they had been given every opportunity to change their ways, yet they failed to do so. Now, I believe this to be the best course of action because it allows the family to remain together, which, for the sake of the child, is the most desirable outcome. It is noted in the case facts that the family has the financial assets to provide the child with a privileged upbringing, whereas if we were to place him in the custody of the state, he would not have those same opportunities and resources that he would with his actual family. It's critically important for us to remember that it is not our job to divide families, but to do what is best for the children, and keeping the family together ultimately is what's best in this situation. Now, it's also very important to look at this case from the point of view of all the individuals involved. So I'm going to start with the child. So from the eyes of this child, the abuse he receives is completely unwarranted, and he should have every reason to disavow his parents and to completely sever ties. However, we've got to remember that he still does love his parents, no matter what. So I feel that giving them the chance to become a family once again will have the best results when it comes to the mental welfare of the child. Another important viewpoint to consider would be the view of the parents. Both of them being professionals in their respective careers, they are undoubtedly under a great deal of stress. Couple that with the marital issues they had started to face, and a child to take care of, they must have resorted to targeting their child because of his inability to understand what they were going through. I mean, he's 7 years old. How can he know what we're going through? I'm assuming is what was going through their mind. So, while I'm in no way attempting to condone their actions because it's awful, it's abhorrent what they've done, it is important to address the root cause of their frustrations so we can create a targeted approach to their rehabilitation, ultimately their reunion as a true family. Now, lastly, I would like to address some of the short-term and long-term consequences that the decision that I have made could be. So with regard to the short term, the most obvious concern is that the parents will slip back into their old ways and begin to abuse their child. So while they will be offered counseling and therapy, it is always possible that this could happen and thus negatively impact the child's life once again, which is ultimately what we're trying to avoid in this situation. The child comes first. Another short-term issue is the knee-jerk reaction of the parents' employers and how that could impact the stress levels of the family. With their careers built up over the years, the loss of their jobs because of this incident could lead to the deterioration of the family until they ultimately could not even support a child any longer. A long-term consequence for my decision is that the child may have lasting psychological issues derived from the abuse suffered at such an early age. So putting him back in this situation could keep these issues resurfacing, so he could constantly be faced with the memories that his parents abused him. So it's imperative that the boy has relevant resources at his disposal should he need them in the future. So finally, I'd like to finish off with a couple of questions. So my questions for the board are, number one, do you think that the parents should be offered counseling or therapy, or should it be mandated by the court, and why? Number two is, should the grandparents have been more proactive or involved in the discovery of this abuse? Because you've got to remember, the child, the 7-year-old, was at the grandparents' house most weekends that he was free. So maybe they could have seen the signs, maybe they could have asked him questions about how it was going, maybe they knew, maybe they didn't, but that's a good one for discussion. And then question number three, do you think that more could have been done on behalf of the parents to avoid this situation? So what could they have done to stop abusing their child, basically? What stress factors could they have eliminated to make his life more livable? Thank you very much.